What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence, the #1 show for reaching millions of people, helping you grow your brand. Today, we are talking about something really exciting, and it is how to do content marketing through email. If you have an email list and you're like, nobody reads my emails, nobody's opening anything, it's not because email isn't working. It's because you're not putting anything out that people want to read. I get over a 20% email open rate. I'm not going to share what I do, though. Instead, I am going to give it to our guest, Rob Fortier. Rob, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Steve, I'm doing great. And thank you so much for having me today.
No problem. I am super excited. So I love email. It's one of the biggest things that I do to reach people. I've done hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sales through email. People always ask me, they're like, what do you mean? How are you getting 20% open rates? How are you getting such good click through? And I'm like, because I write an email. Most people, though, in my experience, right? Like I look at my email box right now, I've got stuff and it's all like, buy this thing over here. Here's what we've got for sale. Or even worse, here's my newsletter.
Oh,
So, I know you focus on helping people specifically with content. And one of the biggest things is, well, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to put in my email. So tell me how this all started for you, because there's got to be a good story behind it.
sure. So, I've had many careers in my life, from theater to working in the box office to working at Starbucks to having my own greeting card company. So through all the businesses I've worked for or run before, I have learned that one of the most important things you can do as a business owner is show up in your marketing. So I was doing a lot of social media for people, and I was having a little bit of fun with that with one client because she just let me do whatever I want. So that was great. The other clients, they started making demands on me, and I'm like, this isn't so much fun anymore. So I saw that they still needed to be out there, but I realized a lot of folks that I had been working with weren't really using their email inbox for anything. A lot of people, especially in the coaching world, or if you're a consultant or some kind of solopreneur, you're pushed to build a list, build a list, build a list, build a list. It's so important. But so many people don't know what to do with it, as you said, except for like, buy my stuff. And nobody really wants to read that constantly. So I saw that, people can, and I would put the questions out there about like, okay, what are you guys struggling with? People will always come back with email. I don't know what to put in my emails. I don't know when to send them. I don't know what to write. I don't know how long they should be. And I giggled when you said newsletter, because that is such a thing that people are stuck on. Back in the day when email was new, we were all excited about it. Like, I got an email today, and we would get newsletters from people. Nobody wants to read that stuff anymore. So I'm all about the short, the sweet, and tighten it up. But that's a mental block for a lot of folks. They think that an email has to take them forever to write, and it has to be chock full of everything they can think of and 17 points. And really, it's about putting out value and something that's consumable in a very short period of time. Those are the kind of emails that get read by people.
100%. I mean, what I always tell people is, I'm holding up my phone right now. Your email gets read on a phone. A phone screen fits somewhere between 50 and 100 words, depending on, what they're using to read it or what you wrote it in. Mm-hmm. If it's much longer than that, they're not going to read it. We consume stuff. When email started, 25 years ago, I loved I remember the servers in college, like it'd be like, burp, 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 and like, it was like AOL ish, yep. Or before AOL even, like, oh my goodness, I got this email and all this stuff going around, the chain letters. I probably got like 80 letters from Bill Gates testing out stuff for Microsoft. I was supposed to win $1 million. But like nowadays we're used to reading as a text message, which is, maybe 20 words. If it's much longer than that, we're not even reading the text message, right?
No. So
beyond making it a little bit shorter and a little bit sweeter, we'll get into tricks to tighten it up. What should they use for content? Because if you have a newsletter, a quote newsletter, right? There's blocks, right? You're talking about what you did. You're talking about a marketing thing. You're talking about something else. Like there's like 5 or 6 different stories in there. If they're even stories, there's 5 or 6 different topics, we'll call them. How do you move from that to just doing an email?
It's probably scary for some people to reduce that amount of content. But if you've got something like that that's got 5 or 6 points, it's all about pulling out the value for people. Building an email list and then talking to those folks, you're building a relationship with your potential clients or your clients or whoever's reading this. They may never meet you in person. They may or may not work with you on a one-on-one basis. So this is your chance to give them something that they can use. If there is value in it, it's teaching, it's a resource, it's inspiring, it's entertaining, they're going to want to open your emails because they know there's something in it for them. So I always tell people, think of it like a conversation with people. You don't have to, the language doesn't have to be super formal. It doesn't have to be talk about a million things. Could it be like, hey friends, this week I had this experience and I learned X, Y, and Z from it. Have you ever struggled with this? Tell me about it. I'd love to help you out. That could be a whole email right there, because you're having a conversation and you're encouraging interaction and building that relationship with those folks. So it's all about taking all the things that you know and just picking one of them and focusing on that every time you send out an email.
Well, that is really good advice. I can hear some of the questions in the listeners' heads, right? They're like, but I do put what's in it for them. I know how to solve their problem. They just have to buy my thing. And what you are saying, and what I want anyone who says that to think of, do you want to open an email where it's like, buy a shovel. I have a great shovel. You need to buy it. Even if I need a hole, I'm probably not going to buy your shovel. But if instead you make it entertaining, when you say what's in it for them, people at their core, 99% of people want to be entertained, and if you make them laugh, if you make them feel an emotion, if you tell them something that makes their life better, right? Like, why do we like watching mindless TV, Seinfeld, Friends, Cheers back in the day? Because it took us out of our life for a second and showed us that there was something something better, more entertaining, like something that made our lives better. So when you say what's in it for them, it does not mean that you have to sell them a $9.97 course or a $47 course. Sometimes I send 5 to 7 emails a week. And sometimes I send emails that just tell people a joke. And I say, hey, I hope this made your life better. Those, like, I get responses from those like, dude, that was corny, or hey, that was a really bad dad joke. I'm going to use that sometime. Like, that's all that people want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is value in, when we sell people things we are offering them value, but it's a different kind of value. In between that, you want to offer things with no expectation of they have to open their wallets, because, it's again, back to like, if you sat down with a friend, you wouldn't just sit down with your friend to have coffee and just talk at them for 5 minutes and be like, okay, well, I gotta go. Thanks. This was fun. You offer some advice. You tell them a story. You're vulnerable with them. That's something great to do in emails, is that I try to do. Is I'm not perfect. I don't ever claim to be perfect. So sometimes my emails are about, I had this problem this week, or I made this mistake, and here's what I sort of figured out I could do to either use it to move forward or correct it or whatnot. And then say, hey, what do you guys think about this? What would you have done differently? Or if this happened to you, how would you have reacted to it? So it's about being vulnerable, sharing experiences. Like, I love the joke thing. I might have to borrow that from you for a couple of emails, but that's perfect, because it gets someone to open, it gets them to engage, it gets them to react, and another step in building that relationship. I can learn more about you probably from your jokes than I can from your sales scripts. So I love that.
That's, 100%. Like, I'm not against selling. Anyone who knows me, I make an offer in 90% of my emails, but I don't lead with the offer. I lead with something of fun, something of value, some kind of entertainment, and maybe a teaching point. And I love what you said about being vulnerable, because that's the thing. Like, email at its core is not about making offers to people. It's about building relationships. And that's why it's so powerful. Like, you think about Facebook, right? Everybody is on the Facebook or Instagram bandwagon, and they're like, oh, they're posting pics. They're trying to comment on everything. What are you really trying to do at the end of that? You're trying to get people to know, like, and trust you. If they are on your email list, the reason that I will say email should be your number one marketing tool is because You get to build a relationship and you have a fence around those people. Nobody can take those people away from you. If they're reading your email, they're not seeing 18 other posts. They're not getting ads pitched at them in between, and they're not scrolling, right? It is in front of them. You are building a relationship. And I think that was the mind shift for me, because I went through this in my own business. Where I would just send out marketing emails. I was like, when I looked at it, instead of its relationship, Ben Settle said this, and I think he said it best. I think Ben said this. The email is like talk radio in print. And I don't know if you listen to Howard Stern. I mean, you're from New York. Like, if you listen to any kind of talk radio, why do people listen to it? Because they want to be entertained. Do they sell stuff? Absolutely. But what's the main reason? And if you just translate that, I don't even know if anyone really listens to talk radio. I guess podcasts are probably the closest thing we have.
Yeah, I would say podcasts at this point. But that's such a good point about being entertained and about selling, right? There's nothing wrong with it. That's why we have businesses. That's why we build an email list. But I want to emphasize a really good point you made about social media and landing in people's inboxes. People say, oh, only, like you said, 20%. People who don't have a lot of experience with email think that a 20% open rate may sound low, when really that's actually really good. It ranges anywhere from 15 to 25 is sort of the average on that. So that's 20% of your email list that is opening and seeing your emails, as opposed to that second they flash by on social media. It's hard to measure that stuff and to measure the results of that, especially lately with all the hullabaloo about Apple changing, the security settings, and that really people having a difficult time navigating that with Facebook ads. And, they'll get it figured out eventually, but you're taking a risk. Whereas if you send them an email, they have to make a choice. They have to open it, they have to delete it, or, they have to do something with it. So you're sort of encouraging them to do something with it. And you have a much higher chance of success of getting your message across to somebody in that inbox. And it's also, it doesn't cost you anything to send emails, where you can spend hundreds of dollars on ads if you want to. It's believe me, I've done it. I've wasted a lot of money very quickly just trying to figure out, just guessing on how to get people's attention using paid ads on social media. Next time I will hire an expert for sure.
Well, I mean, Facebook ads are a mixed bag. I ran a Facebook ads agency for years. Mm-hmm. They're definitely getting more expensive, and you're getting less reach for your money. Due to the stuff that Apple is changing and Facebook is changing. Plus, like, you can't use they're trying to whitewash ads as much as possible. And this is the reason Facebook is doing it, right? They want the users to have an amazing experience. Mm-hmm. And if your ad makes them feel bad in any way, or drives them to do something in any way, then Facebook says, well, they're not going to like that. So they might bounce off of Facebook. So we don't want to do that. And when I say make somebody feel bad, like, good sales copy has pain points. It stirs up emotions and pain. That's kind of the point. Stories do that. Really great stories do that. Good content anywhere does that. But Facebook because it's all AI driven now, like, you're going to have problems with that. I do think email should be the number one thing, and you should pick one other medium wherever you want to be. Mine's podcasting and video. If you're there, then people can find you and you will attract your crowd. But to your point from earlier, we're all told to build a list. Most people build a list and they never know what to do with it. So then they don't, and then they realize why their business is suffering. So
yeah, exactly.
I would love to go into, if you can give a framework, because I want to go back to content, because people are like, I just don't know what to write in my email. So tell me about, like you said, I'm vulnerable. I know that scares a lot of people. So if we're not going to be super vulnerable, what is just something, can they take an average walk down the street? Can they take something that they did in their social life? How do you work with people? What do you tell them to put into their emails?
Well, first of all, you have to know who you're talking to. That's the biggest point. If you're growing your business, you have to know about your audience. What's, like you said, you mentioned pain points. That's something that you want to address. Problems they're having. Also, what are things outside of maybe what you teach that relate to them? Like if you are working, let's say, with mompreneurs, working moms, what are some other issues that maybe you don't teach about, but could come into their lives? Maybe you've got some resources or things you could teach, sort of offer them to sort of help them along. So you're addressing the whole person. What TV shows do they like? Like I'm not a big TV person, but I do like podcasts. So sometimes I'll mention funny podcasts or tips I've saw that are related to my audience, but not necessarily something that I'm going to, roll out a class about or teach about. So again, go back to that adding value and building relationships with people. But I think there are ways to do it for people who struggle with what to put in by giving the whole thing some structure. Like again, back to sales, those things have, when you're doing a launch, those have a pattern, those have a structure to them. But outside of that, if you can establish a couple times of, like, let's say you're going to decide you're going to email every week, right? So set up in advance. This week, it's going to be something I'm going to teach a pain point. This is going to be something I tell a story. Like I love taking stories. Like you mentioned this, going to the grocery store. I went to the gym and I learned, what did you take away from something? Like something funny happened to you at the grocery store, or you learn something about like not to put your frozen items, at the end, because then it squishes your bread or whatever it is. You can take all those things with a little creativity and turn it around into something that relates to your audience. So I did a whole series for a long time of videos that I took after I worked out at the gym, and I translated those into emails about, okay, I just worked out, I'm a gross sweaty mess, and here's what I learned today about working out, and here's how this translates into running a business. And can you relate to that? So oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't quite get it. Like, how do you do that? I want to go back to the grocery store thing, right?
Yeah.
So like I got to the front and my bread was squished because I put the green beans on top and, nothing was in order. What this taught me was that I need a framework, or I need a structure to put things in, a lot like you probably need a structure for emails. So if you're interested in that, here's a template. Like you see how like quickly, like I told a story last week about going out for a run and not knowing where I was going and getting lost. And then I laid that right into, and I said, well, when I got lost, I started to get tired, right? Because I normally run for 4 miles, but I got to 5.5 miles. So I'm like, oh man, I'm getting tired. Well, what happens when you don't have a plan and you get lost, right? A lot of people do this in business. They start moving forward. They don't have a plan or a strategy. They get 2 weeks in, they're writing a bunch of emails, they're doing a bunch of social media, they get lost. So you need a strategy. If you need help with a strategy, that's what I do. I help people with strategy. I help people with storytelling. I help people reach their audience. Reach out to me down below. Like that's a real easy twist on that story. And that whole email was 180 words. So it's short. It's a little bit longer than one iPhone screen. It's about 2. Mm-hmm. It's readable. It has a clear call to action. But I'm going to go back to you at the gym, because you did a series, which is even better because people know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every Monday it was a sweaty Rob wearing a bandana video, and it was, when think about working out, you got to show up consistently to get results. You have to have some discipline. You're always trying to get better at what you do, improving your technique. You're experimenting to keep yourself interested. So what can you play with to make this more fun for people? So all those lessons I was able to tie into, running a business, having, like you said, great example with that run. I love that. Having a plan, constantly learning. But that's something every business owner needs to be doing, is constantly learning, improving that, and sharing that with their readers. What did you learn, and how can this benefit them? So it does take a little bit of creativity, but there are possibilities every place you look to take anything that happens to you and turn it into an email that can add value to your subscribers' lives and get a conversation going. If I was a runner, I would steal that running idea, but I'm not a runner, so I have to pass on that one.
I mean, you could use it with driving. You could say the same thing. I wanted to go to a new store, right? I wanted to go to a different store, or you could even a detour, right? There was a sign up and I had to take a detour and I didn't know where I was going. How many of you have hit something like that in your business? Everything can be used as content. You just have to, it's more of a mind shift switch. Mm-hmm. So I actually want to ask you, what do you think is the main reason people don't email more often?
Based on the questions I get and some of my experience, I think mostly it just comes down to I don't think I have something important to say. So I'm not going to say anything at all because that's better. The second reason after that is also I don't want to bother my subscribers. And it's like, well, they signed up to hear from you. So we need to just wipe that one out. But it comes back to I just don't know what to where to even begin. And if you sat down and someone said, tell me, I need to ask your advice, tell me about XYZ in your business, you could probably go on for 10 or 15 minutes about certain topics. So take that knowledge and sit down, even do this exercise. I do this with people. Sit down and let's talk this out. We're not going to write an article. We're not going to write an email or a newsletter or whatever you want to call it. Just talk to me and maybe we'll record it. And then you got all the ideas you need to probably make 5, 6, 7, 8 emails out of a 10-minute conversation because you're comfortable with the format of talking. So that's the thing that's hard for sometimes people too, is to translate that into the written word. So you know what? Hire someone to transcribe it. Use a service that auto transcribes that and just clean it up. Don't let that get stuck in terms of I had nothing to say. You have plenty to say. You just don't want to write it down in an email. So work it out, people, and figure out how to get it into the written word because you've got that. You're a business owner. You've got that knowledge. You're an expert in something. So don't be afraid to share it with people because that's what they need. And they need to hear it again and again and again and again. Things that you trivialize because they're easy for you are probably hard for somebody that's on your email list. They struggle with that. So they could really use your help with that.
I think that is absolutely great advice. Just start writing. Like you just have to send something else. Sending something is better than sending nothing. I talked to somebody a couple of weeks ago that emailed once a month because they didn't want to bother their subscribers. But really, when we talked about it a little bit more, it was because they didn't know what to say and it was hard to write. They were like, they were writing like these 1,000-word essays. And I was like, no. Like short, sweet. And the second piece that I want to talk about, which you brought up, is they're scared of bothering people, right? Which that was this person's thing. And my response to them was, if they unsubscribe, they weren't meant to buy from you. Like if they unsubscribe because you're emailing them a few times a week, they're not your customer. They were never probably going to buy anything from you anyway. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, unless there's 2% of the population that is in immense pain around what you're doing and they will buy anything, but they're usually the people that are the hardest to deal with, right? Everybody else, the other 98%, will buy some things and they're more likely to buy from somebody they know, like, and trust, have a relationship with, and points them in the direction. So my question would be, how do you tell people to either handle unsubscribes or to get over that, oh, I might bother somebody? What's your prescription for that?
I sort of look at it as, if you go, like you went to a party, let's say, and you met a handful of people and you like them all, like say there were 5 of them, and you try to make coffee dates with them afterwards or Zoom calls or whatever. Before pre-pandemic times, we could do those things, meet in person. But you think of it like that. There's a couple that you're going to connect with right away, and they could become friends for a very long time. There's a couple that you may have a meeting or two with once and be like, you were nice, but maybe I'll see you again, and maybe I won't. But I didn't really hit it off with you as well as I thought it would. So subscribers are the same thing, right? Everybody, you met all these people, they were excited to meet you, they got on your list, and after a while, they're like, oh, I really like this guy, I'm going to stick with him. And there are a couple, they're like, you know what, he's not really for me. So you have to sort of it's not about you. They don't hate you. You just weren't the right fit for them. So, and it's a continuous ebb and flow. Like you have friends that come and go. You have friends you don't talk to for a while and they come back into your life and it's like you never left. People are going to come in and out of your email list, and that's okay. They may unsubscribe, they might come back, they might not, but it's a constantly up and down thing. I just, did a recent event where I added quite a few people. And then the first email I sent after that event ended, I had a whole bunch of unsubscribes. And you know what? That's okay. Because they came, they got a little piece of Rob. They decided, he's not really for me. So I'm going to jump off now before we go too far in this relationship here. So
That
don't take it personally.
well, that is the biggest thing. Don't take it personally. There are 8.2 billion people in the world. I think I don't know, we're at like 400 million in the US. You can get more subscribers. You should keep building your list. The only reason that you should be worried if people are unsubscribing is if you are not adding people. But even then, if they're unsubscribing from you, they were never going to buy from you anyway. Just
Exactly.
don't worry about it and keep sending it out. I actually look at it. One of my mentors, Alex Sharfin, told me haters confirm greatness. Like when you start to be polarizing in your message, for every 100 fans you have, you're going to have one person that doesn't like you for whatever reason. Your message doesn't vibe with them. Not a problem. That means that you are actually taking a stand on something, because if you don't take a stand, if you just stay in the middle, you're never going to attract anybody. Polarity attracts people. And when you start to have some polarity, you're going to annoy some people. Some people are going to unsubscribe. That's fine. They weren't your people.
Yeah.
If I could shout that from the rooftop, I would, over and over and over again. What do you think? How many people do you think you need on an email list to be successful?
That is a challenging question to answer because it depends on your business, but you can have a small list of 500 to 1,000 people. And if they're really responsive, they're really hanging with you, that may be all you need. Other people, depending on their business, may need more, maybe to be in the thousands because there's something that's more one-off or hit it and quit it. Maybe there's not a way for them to be long-term people of yours or advocates. So it kind of varies, but it's really so much more about the response rate. Are you from the very beginning? Like, that's why I encourage people when they start email lists to have some kind of nurture sequence in the beginning. Right from the bat, you get people a few emails that come a day after each other that say, hey, this is who I am. This is what you can expect from being here. Let me give you some value. And, if you want more, hey, you're in the right place. Just hang with me. Because then you get people to jump off right away in the beginning, but it trains them to say, okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking what I'm getting. I like this vibe. I like Rob. He told me some fun, quirky, weird things about him, and he gave me some free stuff. So I'm going to respond, and I'm going to his questions and be involved with him. So to me, that is much more of importance than I've got 10,000 people. I did an event not too long ago with somebody who had a list much larger than me, and we had her list was much more unresponsive than mine was, and I kind of got the same numbers from her as she did. And it wasn't about the numbers on her email list. It was about their engagement with her.
That's the biggest takeaway that I can offer people. I mean, it took me, I got to 1,000 people pretty quickly. And then it took me probably 2 years to break 2,500. Mm-hmm. And then it grew pretty quick after that. But I will say I did plenty in sales off of 1,000 person to 1,500 person list because they were responsive to what I was putting out. One of my really good friends has a list of 700 to 800 people. She doesn't put a lot of time or energy into doing it. Her business last year did over $250,000.
Yeah.
Off of a list of that size. And she works in copy. She's a copywriter. And she just sells to that list, right? But she puts out, she's quirky, she's fun. She has over a 30% open rate, which is awesome. I mean, some of her emails, she has like a 50, 60% open rate, which her list is very responsive. And anytime, this is the thing, she's booked out usually 6 to 8 months in advance. All she has to do is when she gets down to 6 months, say, hey, I'm usually booked out 6 to 8 months in advance. Right now I have some openings, 5 months from now. If you want in, let me know. And she's sold. And she's not selling cheap services. So I'm telling you that story. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. You have all this nonsense going on in your head. You don't need a big list. You don't need to be a crazy good writer. I am a horrible writer. I can't spell. I'll tell you the very first email that I ever sent to a list. I think I've told this story on here before, but the very first email I ever sent, I bought a list of 150,000 for this is in 2014. I bought the list from a reputable list broker. The list was $4,000 is what I paid for it, $4,000. I loaded it. I got it all cleaned, got it ready to go. The first email I sent, the program that I was using, I thought had a spell checker built into it. I was so used to Google catching all the spelling mistakes. 27 misspelled words on my first email. And it was a professional. It wasn't a, hey, my name's Steve, this is what I do. It was actually going to dentists and chiropractors to show them how I was inviting them to a marketing event that I was holding. I will say I got a lot of responses. I think I got over 100 responses. One lady flat out blasted me, like the very first email I opened. What is this? Blah, blah, blah. You can't spell. Why are you sending this to me? You're not real. You must be from a third world country. Like you're some prince somewhere. Like she was really harsh. Some other people were nicer. There were some people in there that were super harsh. You want to talk about unsubscribes? I think I lost a third of my list. It was not good, but
wow.
I will tell you, I can't spell. My grammar is not good. I use an app called Hemingway, which, is pretty fun. It checks for grammar and makes sure that I'm not making any horrid mistakes. Mm-hmm. But I just tell people in my I have a nurture sequence. It's 3 emails, but in all 3 of them, I say, hey, I am not a great writer, but I'm entertaining. And you know what? If there's some misspelled words or words aren't capitalized, or I randomly capitalize letters in the middle of words for some reason, I don't know what's going on there. But I'm like, if any of that bothers you, you should just unsubscribe because you're going to get more annoyed with my emails than anything.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to have fun and you want like daily entertainment, as well as some lessons, like I try to teach some stuff that I'm learning in my life, cool. You're going to have a good time. That's it. And like, I think I get more replies to that email when they come through it. They're like, dude, like, thanks for doing this. Like I get that email a lot, which makes me happy. I'm like, cool, I'm doing something right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just telling you that story. If you're out there listening to this, just start sending emails. Just tell a joke. Start with a joke or a quote. Those are 2 really easy ones. Your favorite quote, what it means to you and why, mm-hmm. and wish them a good day. Yeah. That's my advice though. And Rob, this is your interview. So what would you tell people if they're getting started? I mean, you're the pro. I'm not the pro at email by any means. What would you tell people if they're listening and they're like, I'm so used to trying to send a newsletter, but nobody reads it. I don't know where to start. I have these stories like, yeah, I got lost on a drive, but how do I put that in an email? What would you tell somebody to do? What's step number 1, step number 2, step number 3?
I think one of the first things to do, and I kind of did this when I first started out writing, these types of emails, is to look in your own inbox. If you're anything like me and probably Steve, you get tons of emails every day in your inbox. So take a look at them and see what resonates with you. What is it? Is there a style that kind of works? Is it short and quirky? Are their sentences really short? Is it longer? Is it a little bit more formal maybe? So what resonates with you? And is that something you can use as an example? I will also tell you that's a great place to get subject line ideas. Is don't copy other people's work, but use as an inspiration to create your own. So start there to get sort of inspired of like, okay, how can I do this? And also I would say the next thing is to, find a topic that is going to resonate with your audience. If you have no idea at this point, go to places like Google and do searches. Go to forums like Quora and Reddit. What are people in your industry talking about? What questions do they have? I love the website. It's called answerthepublic.com. And you just type in a word and it will give you literally hundreds of things that people are looking for and asking about. I also like to look through books like bestsellers on Amazon and read the table of contents, because that gives you an idea about what are some things that might be important to people. So use those as inspiration if it's relative to your audience. So, find a style that you can sort of use, find a good topic, and then try to just say it like you were giving advice to someone in person. And if you can write that out, that's great. If you have to talk it out, that's great. If you have to tell it to your friend and they have to write it down for you, like Steve said, just start writing the emails, because I can tell you one thing. If you never write emails, you will never get better at them. The only way to get better at them and to get more comfortable doing them is to show up and put in the work and send something out. And the more you do that, the easier, I swear, I promise you, the easier it becomes, the more that you do it. It becomes second nature, and you will start seeing ideas all over the place. You'll have too many ideas. You can probably write a calendar out for the next 6 months of ideas, because you'll be able to sort of find them in the world because you're in tune with that.
That is absolutely great advice. I know when I started putting notes in my phone every time I got an idea, and I just built a document. So anytime I was wondering, I would just go look at that document. That is a great idea. Rob, where can people find you? If people are like, you know what, I need some help from a professional, where can people find you at? Where should they go?
You can go to my website. It's my first and last name. So it's robfortier.com, ROBFORTIER.com. And from there, you can find social media channels. I hang out a lot on Instagram, but I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. So you can connect with me and scope me out. And if you want to join my email list, then you'll get examples of what a nurture sequence looks like. And you can see the kind of things I'm doing. And you can even borrow from me. I give you permission to borrow from my emails for your own benefit if it gets you to start writing emails.
Awesome. Rob, thank you so much. He just gave you permission. If you have no excuse after this podcast to not be sending more emails, everything will be listed in the show notes. Also, you can grab the action bullets, which is the quick, easy cheat sheet version of this podcast. All of that stuff is linked down below. Rob, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much valuable information. It was awesome to have you here.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thank you for having me.
No problem. My pleasure. To everyone else, until next time, take action, change lives, and make money. We will see you soon.